All right, guys, welcome back to the Everything College Football podcast. Today we're going to be looking at Michigan and Michigan State rivalry renewed here on Saturday. How great is this rivalry? It's even better when both teams are ranked inside the top 10 and they're both 7-0, undefeated. Michigan's won the last two trips to East Lansing. They come into this one on the road as 3.5-point favorites with an over-under set at 51. This will be contested at noon. So 12 p.m. Eastern time on Fox. The Michigan offense, they've been really good this year, mainly led by a stout offensive line. They rank first in FBS in tackles for loss allowed. Andrew Vastardis there on the interior. He's been a real standout for them. This running back duo of Hassan Haskins, Blake Corum is probably the nation's best. I don't want to say probably, it is. Both of these guys are responsible for the 253 yards per game Michigan's running for. They both have 10 touchdowns each. One thing this offensive line is doing very well of, not just getting a push up front, but also sealing the edge very well. These guys can make plays on the inside, the outside. They're getting to the second level extremely well. This offensive line is just playing so good for Michigan this year. Cade McNamara at quarterback, he's been solid, 63% completion rate. They don't make many big plays downfield at all. It's not a part of their game. I like how he played against Wisconsin, Nebraska, though, when they were challenged a little bit more in the trenches and they struggled to run the ball a little bit more. He made plays when they needed him to throw. So, so far I trust him. Still very small sample size. He only played 2 games last year. They've did a good job of getting it to Cornelius Johnson downfield. Roman Wilson stepped up. They've really been spreading out. I think 8 or 9 different guys have double-figure receptions this year. Eric All at tight end. He's 6'4". He's the biggest guy they got, as far as I'm concerned. They don't have great size at receiver at all. Cornelius Johnson is their best weapon when it comes to making plays on the boundary, though. Mainly, this offense just runs through this running game. They're 46% on third down. They like to control clock, getting short, manageable situations for the quarterback to make plays. They've done it to a T this year. They've not been turning the ball over at all. 4 turnovers this year. All of them have come over the last 3 games. They've had at least 1 in each of the last 3. 0 before that. They had 2 fumbles against Northwestern, 1 in the red zone. So they have been far from perfect the last couple of weeks. But I wanted to see how they handled against Wisconsin. When they went into that Wisconsin game over the years, they've just been completely stonewalled because their QB play has just been poor. That game was very impressive. McNamara made multiple plays downfield. They were able to have a nice little downfield passing game there. Ran the ball solidly, a lot of hard-fought yards in that game. But it's not been typical Michigan offense. They're running the ball extremely well, but they're also getting some solid play from the quarterbacks, and they're not turning the ball over. So we'll see what happens here. I like this Michigan offense, though. And, it all starts with Haskins and Corum. At the Michigan State offense, these guys have some explosive playmakers, all facets. Wide receiver, Jaden Redd, Jalen Naylor, Trey Mosley. They all have 20-plus receptions this year. All get involved a good bit. Look at Kenneth Walker, the Wake Forest transfer. Second in rushing, just over 1,000 yards on the season, 142 yards per game, 9 touchdowns. He's been incredibly elusive after contact. He's been hard to bring down. The biggest problem with this offense, though, Nebraska and Indiana, they really bottled them up, though, in the running game. The offensive line has not been perfect by any means. Jarrett Horst has been a big addition. Matt Allen, great lineage there at center. Good size. I look what they have across the board, but they have not exactly been great all year long. Pass protection has been a bit of an issue. I don't think they have great containment, kind of like Michigan does on the edge. When they can't run, though, they're not good on offense. They're very stagnant. In those games against Nebraska and Indiana, the offense was not good. What do they have, 230 yards or less against IU? Nebraska held them to about 5 in the second half. I'm pretty sure that's what the number was. So when they cannot run the ball, they're not good, really. Peyton Thorne, I like what he's been doing this year. He's been very effective, makes good decisions. This passing game really thrives, though, from the play action. He's calm, he's cool, collected. That's really his best aspect right now. Get those DBs creeping forward a little bit, hit big plays downfield. Exactly 50% of his completions this year have been for 10-plus yards, so that's what they like to do. They like to bunch sets, get 2 tight ends involved, do that play-action bootleg stuff, and that's really what they do to you. I think that's why Connor Hayward, this is going to be a game about physicality. You're going to see him get a variety of touches there. He's converted to tight end this year. I think you're going to see him get some runs in the short yardage, maybe a fullback, try to switch things up a bit. Need to pull out some stops here. But yeah, all around, they're not good when they're one-dimensional. Their balance comes from the running game. if they get stuffed up front, then it's hard to have confidence in this passing game. They're capable, though. They have some, especially on the boundaries. I like what they have. They got guys who can win one-on-one matchups. So not all hope is lost by any means, but that's not how they want to win football games. Kind of like the Wolverines. Both of them really run through the pass, or from the run, that is. Pass when they need to. They've not been great themselves on third down, the Spartans. So very similar offenses in a sense. Michigan, though, I have a little bit more faith in their passing game. Even though Michigan State, very capable. We'll see what happens on Saturday. Looking at the Michigan defense, they've been shaky with open field tackling. The only score versus Northwestern they allowed was a 76-yarder. Bad positioning from the defense. Nebraska kind of did the same thing. Had success in the open field, running between the tackles. They get good penetration, though, this defensive line, though. They haven't been bad against the run, just a tad bit itchy at times. Not always great. Third and long, against Northwestern, that is, they had a third and long screen where they gave up a conversion where bad angles, missed tackle. So they've not been very consistent. They've been maybe inconsistent about 20% of the time because this defense has made a lot of big strides because last season they were terrible. I think Wisconsin had 300-400 yards rushing on them. They were just god-awful last year in all facets of the game. A complete schematic change with McDonald at the DC, so they play a lot more zone. Linebacker Joe Ross, he's a guy I really like in this front seven. I want to focus on this area of the defense real quick. I like the size I have up front at defensive tackle in the interior. Mozzie Smith, Christopher Hinton, Donovan Jeter. These guys are big, massive players. You look at linebacker, I think I just mentioned Joe Ross. He's a phenomenal tackler for them. David Ojabo, he's been a heck of a playmaker off the edge. Most importantly, though, Aiden Hutchinson, he's one of the best players in college football right now. He's tough to contain off the edge. Phenomenal pass rusher. Really building his case to go first round in next year's draft and for some hardware. So this front seven, they really came to play this year. But again, some of the inconsistencies could plague them in this game. As Michigan State, they love to run the ball, and that's kind of been their biggest issues this year. Michigan last year struggled mightily in this game in man coverage. Remember, they had numerous penalties. DBs got out-muscled very often. More zone this time around with McDonald's scheme. You know, the great safety duo they have of Brad Hawkins, Daxton Hill. I think Vincent Gray, German Green. These guys are going to be up for the challenge in this game. Focusing back on some of their inconsistencies, though. The misdirection from Nebraska hurt this defense. Crossers, multiple guys in the backfield. Guys running the vertical running game really hurt them. Peyton Thorne, he's an adequate runner. So it's going to be interesting to see if Michigan State does the same. They run some similar formations in terms of bunching it up a bit, putting tight ends in the backfield. So we'll see what happens. I think Michigan's certainly going to play a better game than they did against the Cornhuskers, where they shut them out in the first half and in the second half got absolutely torched. So that's really what I've noticed has hurt them the most, and it could favor Michigan State, so we'll see what happens. At the Spartans defense, Michigan State, they don't give up much on the ground themselves. 6th in 10-plus yard runs allowed. They have an active defensive line. I like the depth they have. Maverick Hansen, Simon Barrow, those guys really stand out to me. They haven't been getting as much out of Drew Beasley as I expected they would, but Jeff Petrowski, he's really stepped up. Jacob Pasnook, he's just as good as Aiden Hutchinson. Of course, Hutchinson will get all the attention, but Pasnook, he's been very good himself here in the Big Ten this year as a pass rusher and overall playmaker off the edge. Quavarius Crouch from Tennessee, he's been a big addition for them at linebacker. I think the biggest problem for this Michigan State defense is their secondary. Coming into the year, they added a lot of guys via the transfer portal, so they got a lot of good talent in there, but overall it's a young unit. Not in terms of the players being young, but time in the system, not a lot. They don't have a lot of playing time themselves. Outside of Xavier Henderson, they don't have too much that really excited me coming into the year, and it's been a struggle. 121st in pass defense. They've been blasted against off coverage, struggled to defend the middle of the field. Overall, the DBs, though, they've not been making very good plays on the ball. These guys are talented, but they have not been having great positioning, not putting themselves in position to make good plays. So that could be a problem here. It's not like Michigan has a daunting passing attack by any means, but once they get that play action going, it could certainly be a concern, as Michigan does have capabilities to hurt you in intermediate areas of the field. Looking at team comparisons, look at that quarterback. I think Michigan State has the edge of Peyton Thorne. I really liked what I saw from him. Calm, cool, collected, as I mentioned earlier. He really thrives with his play action. I think he's been a much more accurate downfield passer than McNamara has. Neither of these guys have been bad. They've both executed their systems very well. But I like Peyton Thorne. I've been impressed with what I've seen from him this season. Running back, Michigan has the edge. The nation's top running back duo in Haskins and Corum. Yes, Kenneth Walker's phenomenal, but outside of him, they don't really have great depth. At a wide receiver, got to give it to Michigan State. There's not too many things that really stand out about the Wolverine receiving corps. It's a very young unit. Outside of Cornelius Johnson, the touches are really just split up evenly, and Michigan State has 3 different guys who really get involved. Jaden Red, he does everything for you as a pass catcher, a special teamer. He's very good. Michigan State has the edge there. The Wolverines have the edge with the offensive line. As I mentioned earlier, first in tackles for loss allowed this year. They sealed the edge phenomenally. Pass protection, they've been holding up very well. The game they had against Wisconsin, very impressive. To play that very physical front 7. McNamara had plenty of time. They ran the ball as solid as you can against that defense. So I got to give them the edge there. Defensive line, I give the edge to Michigan here. I think Aiden Hutchinson, him being as good as he is a big edge. I praise the depth of the Spartans, but I think the size for the Wolverines is more impressive. I like Donovan Jeter, Hilton that is as well. I like what Michigan has overall. It's not like it's an overwhelming gap, but I think the Wolverines have a good edge on the defensive front. Linebacker, got to give it to the Wolverines. The playmakers they have, Joe Ross. I think this is probably the biggest weakness on both teams' defenses is the linebacking position. Although I've knocked the Spartans' receiving core. Cal Halliday has actually been pretty solid for the Spartans as well. But the middle of the field has been kind of an issue for them. Michigan positioning sometimes is an issue with them too. So I think both of them kind of have a weakness. I will give the edge to the Wolverines. Look at the secondary. gets it as well. I love the safety duo they have of Hawkins and Hill. And I think these corners are really starting to adapt to this new Mike McDonald more zone heavy scheme. I think they're really starting to come into their own. They have not been perfect by any means in the Nebraska game. Both teams struggled against that offense. That was a little eye-opening there, but I think they're going to be much better this time around, and overall I think the secondary is just better. Michigan State, that's how young they are. They have a great safety in Henderson, but other than that, I'm not very impressed by this unit. They'll eventually get there if Mel Tucker sticks around, but for 2021, it's a big weakness. That keys to the game and the prediction. Michigan, execute your game plan, run the ball. That's the key to your entire football team. Get this duo of backs going. Do what you want to do in the passing game. It's not that I don't trust McNamara to completely carry the game off his shoulders. That's just not where you want to be, especially with the size discrepancy. That's just not the way you're going to win football games, just trying to go out there and throw it around. You want to have to play bully ball, and that's what Wolverines are going to ask their opponents to do, and they'll probably win that 8 out of 10 times. So they got to run the ball well, tackle as well, because that's kind of been an issue. Tackling against a vertical running game has been a tad bit of an issue, so how will they contain that? I think that's a big key to this game as well. You can't allow this Spartan team to get to you in the open field, because that's when they're going to make their money. So for the Spartans, seal off the edge. Do not let Michigan do what they do and get to the edge of the boundary with their running game. That's where they make plays. These guys are very explosive. They're tough to bring down. I think their offense as well has to get to third and shorts, because that's their bread and butter as well. It's the play action game, being in short situations where they can kind of do those short little curls, maybe throw a little offside slant to a tight end or a back. That's what they want to do. It's not that they have a terrible downfield passing game, but that's just so far this year that's not where they've been good, because they have not been great on third down, and I don't want to see them put the game in the hands of a young quarterback. The prediction for this game, I'm going to take the Wolverines 24-14. I don't think they're going to turn the ball over. I think their defense is going to be much better, facing a similar scheme earlier in the year where they had success against Nebraska and then they got dominated. Both of these teams did. I think I've mentioned that 3 times already, but I think that the Wolverines are going to play a very solid ball game. I think they're going to do what they want. despite the Spartans being pretty solid against the run this year, there has been times where they've been a little questionable, especially against Indiana. Indiana was pushing the pile a good bit against them. You won't see it on the stat sheet or on the scoreboard, anything like that, but when you're watching that game, it's just like this running defense has had some issues. So I think this duo of backs is going to have success. They're going to protect the ball. I think they're going to play better defense, especially in the front seven. And I see the Wolverines coming out on top.